Yeah, I got a Corvette. Not just any. Z06. What does that mean? I don't know. Well, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. Hope you all had a fun, Merry Christmas. I got a lot of fun stuff from the wife, which is awesome. I got a new tool hoodie, which I love. Thank you, Callie. What's going on in the world of Corvette stuff on my channel? I'm finally filming that video with my sister tonight, after I make this video. If you have a C5 Corvette, or a C6, or a C7 even, a lot of you have tick master cylinders. I put it in a while ago. It was fine. I wasn't a huge fan of the pedal feel, so I swapped it out with another Tilton, which has the same bore size as a stock at 7 or 3/4 inch, if you will. It feels just like stock. It's super easy to cruise around in now, but you have that premium feel or confidence of an actual cast iron versus a piece of plastic as a master cylinder. So if you have a tick, but the on-off switch feel is annoying, I recommend going to the Tilton 3/4 inch, and it'll feel just like stock, but have that premium-esque-ness to it. That was just a quick PSA. Alright, so today I wanted to talk about the Z06. So you always hear that thrown around, Z06, Z06, blah, blah. People look at that as the epitome of the Corvette. Some would say it's the ZR1, some would say it's a Grand Sport, some would say it's a base model Stingray, whatever you have, whatever. But I wanted to dive into exactly what a Z06 is, what it means, where it came from, its history, which generations utilized it, and kind of where it's going. Obviously with the Z06 coming out with the C8, I thought it'd be fun to dive in where this whole thing started. Alright, now to go back to the very first Z06, you gotta go all the way back to 1963. And like today, the Z06 is kind of its own brand. So you have your introductory model, right? And then you'll have completely different trim, if you will, like its own model, the Z06. But it used to be, in 1963, for one model year, which was at the time, chief engineer, Zora Arkas Duntov. He was a Russian fellow, if I'm not mistaken. He successfully lobbied for the Corvette. Out of the box is amazing, but make it track ready. And he successfully won that bid. So in 1963, there was 199 Z06s made with that option. And it used to just be an option. In the RPO order sheet, the RPO box, you would simply check it, Z06 package, and you would get some few goodies. Thicker front sway bar, larger diameter shock absorbers, both front and rear, and the springs were nearly twice as stiff. You had upgraded brake components, mostly the lines themselves were steel, a dual master cylinder, and vacuum brake booster for your brakes, which was supposed to lessen brake effort, especially when it's hot. Now all these little things would become industry standards later on with most muscle cars or sports cars, so the original 63 Z06 was the first to do a lot of these little goodies. Now, one of the most interesting things I learned about making this little video was the size of the fuel tank. It went from a pretty much average 20-gallon tank to a 36.5-gallon fuel tank in a Corvette. That's nuts. That's like a suburban level fuel tank in a Corvette. And pretty much it lets you go on the track longer, obviously, you don't have to fuel as much. But they pretty much nicknamed the 63 split window Z06 package the tank, or the tanker, because the tank was absurdly huge. But however, if you wanted the large tank option, you couldn't get the convertible because it wouldn't fit, which is pretty interesting. I think later on they revised the package to where you could get a convertible with the tank option with revised tank. Yeah, so there's one made that's convertible with a large tank. Pretty cool. All these little goodies added up to 40% over base price of a 63 Corvette. And aluminum knockoff wheels were an option. The only engine available for the 63 Z06 was the 327, pushing out 360 horsepower, which is pretty good in a car that small. And of course, it was fuel injection. They mastered that in the C1 variant of the Corvette. And it came only in a 4-speed manual with posi traction rear end. What's crazy is that if you wanted the Z06 back in 63, there was no internet, right? So how did you know? It was pretty much word of mouth. Someone would order one, or someone would tell someone that worked at a factory or higher up in GM, like, hey, if you want this, check this box right there. And they kind of tell their friends, which is pretty cool. So if you had one of those 200 original Z06s ever made, that was a pretty exclusive little club. Pretty damn cool. So that was the first generation Z06. The name, the Z package, simply comes from the engineer's name, Zora Arcas Duntov. The 06, I'm kind of fuzzy on. I couldn't exactly find what is that arbitrary. I'm not sure. But the Z stands for Zora. The 06, I guess, is just kind of fit in the VIN at the time. Kind of weird. But yeah, that little RPO Z06 box, that's where the name started. Now, fast forward 38 years, you get the C5 Z06. The C5 was never intended to have a Z06 package. I have a video on this before, kind of the inception of the C5, how it got to get a Z06, but I'll quickly go through it. When the C5 came out, they weren't sure how good it was going to do. In 97, they sold amazing. In 98, they sold amazing. They wanted to bring out what was called the Billy Bob Corvette, a stripped down version, cloth seats, no AC, no frills, right? But this thing was selling so damn well, it didn't take them very long to figure out what they needed to do with their lightest, most capable Corvette, and that was turning into a performance trim, the Z06. And I mean, I've done so much videos on this, I can tell you everything there is to know about a Z06. It was lighter, it had stiffer sway bars, the leaf springs are different, it had Alcoa wheels in the 01, speed lines 03 to 04, titanium stock exhaust, 243 heads on the same 5.7, slightly different cam, different intake delivery, ever so slightly, thinner glass, fixed roof only for rigidity, a fixed antenna instead of a telescoping one, rear brake ducts, I don't know if you can see them down there, to cool your rear brakes, and painted red calipers. All this stuff added up to about a 100-pound weight difference versus a base coupe. And if you're not familiar, the C5 Z06 only came in a 6-speed manual, T56 variant. And the package for the suspension was the same as the Z51, which is the FE4, if I'm not mistaken. And in 2004, the only real difference was there was a commemorative color, kind of a darker blue than the Electron blue, and it had a carbon fiber hood. In 01, there was no HUD option. I do have an 01, but I put a HUD in myself pretty easy. So to the untrained eye, outside the little badge on the fender, it doesn't say 4 or 5. You wouldn't know if this was an 03, 01, 04, you have no idea. Yeah, there's the main thing with the C5 Z06. And again, this wasn't so much an option anymore. This was kind of becoming its own brand. So it's kind of neat. So the Z06 and C5 form, you can really thank that for the C6 Z06, the C7 Z06, and soon to come out C8 Z06, which we'll get to in a second. Oh, and furthermore, this was the first Corvette or car at this price tag to get the Nürburgring under 8 minutes, which was pretty incredible. This thing did it in 7 minutes 56 seconds, which is pretty damn cool for kind of 20-plus-year-old Corvette to do that right out of the box. Pretty damn neat. All right, so 2005, we got the new C6 Corvette, which only came in the base model for that year. 2006 ushered in the new Z06 that offered. The underpinnings are almost identical. This had an aluminum hydroformed frame, which was lighter. It had the LS7 variant at 500 horsepower. This thing could rev out really damn high. It sounds really cool. Had a at the time, power to weight ratio of 6 to 21, which is incredible. 0 to 60, a 3.7 with manual transmission, which even today's standards is pretty damn quick. And that thing could reach 190 miles an hour. The Z06 C6 version was approximately 136 pounds lighter than the base form C6 Corvette with the steel frame. And if I didn't already mention, the LS7 was a 427, and it still is a 427 to this day. A lot of the internals on the LS7 were titanium, a very beefed up motor. As time's gone on, there has been some head issues, some valve issues. People will fight you what exactly the issue is. I think it's a much smaller issue than people make it out to be. But nonetheless, it is something to look at if you're trying to get a C6 Z06. They do have some quirky head issues, but it would not let it deter you. The LS7 is a great motor. I think I might have said 500 horsepower. It's actually made 505 horsepower, so my mistake. And like the C5 Z06, this also had a fixed roof. The roof would not come off. You could quickly look at one from a base model and see it had wider fenders, unlike the C5 variant, which was the exact same width as the base model C5. They made this thing look a lot more aggressive, different wheels. It had a unique front and rear spoiler. The rear cooling ducts were kind of becoming a staple in the higher up Z06 version. And the tires on this thing in the rear end were extremely wide at 325. Crazy. All right, so you're gonna fast forward 9 more years, 2015, with the introduction of the C7 Z06. This car is a monster. This was the first non-naturally aspirated Z06, so we had a blown motor down with a Pro Charger. Pretty crazy. And this was the first time a Z06 was offering two things, both a removable top and an automatic transmission. Now this car is kind of a handful, especially in manual trim, so be ready for that if you do pick one up. And again, this also uses an all aluminum frame. So this car still is all business right out of the box. You got what, roughly 625 horsepower out of a car that's relatively lightweight, super aggressive, super low, very sticky tires. Like I said, this thing was all business all the time. Still a gorgeous car. From the rear end at a 45-degree angle, it's probably one of the most aggressive cars I've ever seen on the road, even more so than the C8 in my opinion. Pretty crazy. Oh, and the manual transmission, not only for the Z06, but the C7 in general, now had 7 speeds versus 6 speeds, which when I had my C7, I wasn't a fan of these in 7th gear. I forget I even had a 7th gear. But yeah, you could get like 35 miles to a gallon on the highway, which is pretty cool. The automatic transmission on the 8-speed in the Z06 for the 7th generation was kind of laggy, really laggy compared to the dual clutch now in the C8 Corvette. This thing had a lot of crazy aero on it, giving you a lot of downforce, which was needed, especially around the track or just spirited driving on the highway. So yeah, the C7 Z06, crazy, all business. I do wish they kept the formula though of keeping it in A, like the 5 and the 6, but I get it, they need to keep up. But now with the return of the Z06 in the C8 form coming out next year at some point, we don't know exactly when yet, it's going back to NA, but it's going to have a flat plane crank, which is pretty freaking cool. And it's staying true to its Z06 roots with all kind of aero on it, having a very unique motor to the rest of its lineup, very high output. Now, I did read somewhere that they're scrapping the magnesium transmission in the Z06 and using just the same trim in the base C8. If I'm wrong on that, someone let me know. I've been reading that on Facebook. I could be wrong. But the C8 Z06 is going to be no short of incredible. I'm excited to see it out in the wild. There's so much stuff about it online on the internet right now you can look at. It looks cool. When I first saw it, I wasn't sure, but more I saw it, more exposure. It looks incredible. I wish they'd offer it like a purple and a lime green. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of the history and lineage of the Z06, as you will. It kind of started as a hidden package and evolved into its own brand as we have it now. So someone asks you, you have a Z06, what does that mean? You can explain to them. It is the high performance variant of the Corvette. Not simply an option anymore, but almost a brand to itself. Pretty dang cool. So I'm excited to see what they do with the Z01, and I might do a Z01 video in the future, kind of the same thing. I know, kind of glazed over that. People are like, what about the Z01? This isn't a Z01 video, this is a Z06 video. So I hope you learned something today. I did. I had no idea that the C2 Corvette had such a large gas tank in the Z06 variant. That's incredible. So, cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned something. And don't worry, I would have added a whole bunch of graphics here for you guys to look at as well. Alright, so I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to go to my sister's house tonight, so we're filming another video tonight. Hope you'll have that in a couple of days. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time. Mark out.